Okay. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to tonight's meeting. We'll move quickly in the agenda right to safety topics. Mr. Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Weaver. Just an update on a few of the things that are going on across the district with regards to safety and the safety and security team. Our qualifications will be held at the end of this month. We'll be utilizing the training facility at the State Police in Skippack. Again, they've been very cooperative. There's never a fee associated with it. They always provide us with excellent accommodation, so we're very appreciative of that. Our taser equipment was received in the last few months. We had some technical issues getting connected because of the firewall that the school district has. Mr. Ganesh and his team have overcome that, so we will have training scheduled for that by the end of March. That's a cooperative effort with the Lower Providence Police. They're providing an instructor, again, at no fee, no cost to the district, so we're thankful for that cooperative piece. We're having conversations with the staff, especially curriculum instruction team, about how better to utilize our Act 80 and PD days with the safety and security team. They're always in the buildings when these events are going on, but we have training ourselves that you're very familiar with that we need to accomplish, and we're trying to work through that to bring some trainings here for our personnel and alleviate some of the background work that they do on these days when the buildings are somewhat relaxed. We had a full team meeting recently. Mr. Weaver, Dr. Russell, myself, and the school police officers met. We went over several topics. One of the topics was the emergency plans in each building, rally and reunification points for those buildings. We made sure that they were up to date. They were being communicated effectively to the teams in each building. I give a shout out. The principals have really taken the lead on this, working with the respective teams in each building. So we're very happy with the way that's been going. But we're always looking for ways to improve, and that conversation that we have with teachers and staff, as well as hearing from parents in the buildings on a daily basis, have improved those plans tremendously. So we're going to keep working through that. I want to just touch base briefly on scheduling. So I made mention to you, I believe, last month that one of our security positions became vacant here at the high school last month on January the 10th. Mr. Haran retired. So we had a conversation with HR about shifting that position to a split shift, so half of the school day and then into the evening when we have events here. So now that we're at full staff with school police, we have the flexibility to move around 2 security officers and potentially turn Mike Haran's position into a school police position as well. And the financial piece of that is within $1,000, I think is what Mr. Weaver told me this week. So to create that additional position and have a school police officer here throughout the evening would be a potential benefit for us. We're going to continue to talk about that, but it's on the table. It would be, I think, a benefit to have somebody here, a district representative, throughout the evening. Currently, we're in a contract with APC Security. That will continue through the end of the 26th school year before it can be changed. But utilizing our personnel and their personnel together is a conversation we're having, as well as reassigning 2 of our school security guards to somewhat of a modified shift a little later in the afternoon, especially as we get into the spring with athletics, musicals, and things that are going on. Obviously, the band has a number of events come the fall. It's always a benefit for Mr. Fabrizio and I to have our staff here to handle things that might come up. So these are some things that we've been talking about in the background. I just wanted to make you aware of those. Nothing's been confirmed yet. We have to take a look at numbers and assignments and things, but it is a definite possibility that, we're kind of in favor of. And then finally, just to touch briefly, there's some summer training. So for our 10-month officers, they finish mid-June. There's some summer training available, and I just wanted you to be aware that I might be shifting those extra days after school closes with those officers to go to that training. It's running up until the end of June. It's run by the Pennsylvania Association of School Resource Officers, and they're bringing in some national trainers that bring some very affordable and credentialed training to our team. So short of hosting these kind of training programs ourselves, we can travel to Harrisburg and potentially take advantage of what they're offering. So that might be coming up in the future before the end of this school term on the 30th of June. And then I just wanted to touch real quickly on 3 outstanding projects you'll see listed here. First, the Route 29 crossing. I'm not having a whole lot of luck with PennDOT. I keep getting pointed in different directions. Mr. Mott Savage, the Public Works Director here in Perkiomen Township, has an engineer he works with, so he's going to try that route to see if that's someone who can facilitate more of a conversation for us to have the crossing out here in front of the high school and potentially tie into the county's trail program. And then as well back into our arboretum and the trails that we have throughout the township. So it'd be a benefit for both us and the township. I just really hope that, PennDOT is overwhelmed with something more important and they're not just ignoring our calls. Camera project, I know you've been made aware that the camera grant was received by the district in the vicinity of $190,000, Mr. Weaver? Yeah. So we're working with the operations team and IT about replacing some of our more antiquated systems and then upgrading some places where we see that there's a deficiency within that grant and within the format that we sent out to them. So that's moving along. We have some of the cameras already in-house. We just have not installed them yet as we work through the process of how to manage them on the server. And then finally, I've been working with Ms. Dreisbach and the Health and Wellness team on the AED placements and training. So we hope to, by the end of this month, have a team, 10% of each building, trained and ready to respond to a cardiac issue within the buildings. And then those devices will be installed by Joe's team into the places that were recommended. And as I mentioned to you before, the existing AEDs are still serviceable, so we're going to keep those as well. So we're almost doubling the number of AEDs we'll have in the district and available to us. So those are the current projects that are out there. And any questions you might have on any of those?
Yes. So with the regard to the replacement for the vacancy for the security position, do you view that as having more opportunity for filling it? Because, is that more or less desirable, I guess, in terms of being able to fill the position?
I don't think we'll have any trouble filling it.
Okay.
I mean, it's desirable to a certain number of people. And having that afternoon and evening shift, Dr. Russell and I have had a number of conversations, especially recently, about coverages in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And we can always do a little better. This is just a flexible spot. And when we work the numbers out, and Mr. Weaver quickly pointed out, he goes, we could potentially have a school police officer here in the evening and it wouldn't be a big stretch. So
that I guess that leads me to my next question, is that person would be a full-time position. It wouldn't be a part-time position. It's two separate things though, right?
Right.
Okay. And so would that person be for the whole campus, or would that person just
Well, they would be focused here on the main campus, but they would be available throughout the district. They'd
And
have,
what would that shift run?
I'm thinking it's either like a 12 to 9, 12:30 to 9, something like that.
I mean,
So they're on an 8.5 hour shift. So somewhere between 12 and 1 o'clock, they would get the tail end of lunches here in high school, or maybe another building would be short during the day. But then it would keep them over through dismissal and then into the evening with, the number of activities we have.
I know some of them don't let out until 9:30, 10 o'clock. That's why I was wondering about the duration. I mean, it would, if we were going to have that be a shift, I think it would make the most sense to have them there at least until all children were out of the building.
Oh,
Until all
absolutely.
students were out of the building. So
Right.
I know if our band groups, our music ensemble groups don't let out until 9:30, having somebody on campus does make
Sure. And we can adjust that on a daily basis if, a coach or a chairperson of the committee or whatever might reach out and say, hey, we're going to be here later. I know I do that with the musicals now.
coordinate through the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Right.
All right. And then the other question that I had about the training, so the PVE days, I'm assuming that you do tabletop exercises and different.
Yeah, we have all those things going on. We've had, we had a plan to bring the county in here, and then it got messed up because of a response they had to make. So, but those things are all available to us ongoing, right?
I just,
So we've talked in the past about reunification, so the members of the team have been through the reunification models, things like that. My next plan is to continue to roll that out with principals, front-end staff, because they're the ones who are going to be, up to their elbows in that when that
sure.
is potentially necessary. And that will be, a tabletop and then a simulated hands-on kind of thing as we progress through it.
Right, the hands-on could happen obviously on a PDE day when there's no students in the building, but I guess my point of bringing it up is just to reiterate and let you have the opportunity to say that your team is constantly in training and conversation.
Yeah, there's all kinds of, I probably get 4 or 5 webinars and online trainings per day from different groups, and I just push them out. If there's ones that I think are particularly important to the district, I'll say, hey, can you finish this, and give them a date. So we did that with a FEMA program that we had, and then also with the threat assessment. I brought them all back to the table with regards to threat assessment, because the state has a model for that as well.
Is there a program tracking to see what officers have done, which trainings? Like,
So
keep track of that?
I keep a record of their certificates, the things that come in, and keep them in a separate file. And then before our June 30th reporting date,
Yeah.
I would get with, well, it used to be Monica Weber, but would get with them and we would share that information back and forth so that we can forward that information to the state.
Wonderful. Okay.
So,
Thank you for providing that update. That's
sure.
Mr. Miller, so let me ask you about the TASER training
Yes.
scheduled for it. So it's been, I guess, documented that throughout law enforcement, TASER training is all willy-nilly and by different departments or states and things. So what type of training will they be going through? And secondly, what is the threshold for the use of a TASER?
So the impetus for the use of a taser was to have a less lethal option. If someone were armed, if someone were extremely combative in a violent way, threatening people, that was the impetus for that. The threshold would be on an individual basis depending on what the circumstances presented would be. I carried one for 25 years and utilized it 2 times, and both times it was an armed person, not with a firearm, but an armed person with a knife. An incredibly combative person that they've been utilized on as well. I don't foresee a lot of it here, quite frankly, but I like the option of having that versus nothing else. So I've been reading up on the data and talking with other departments that are using it, and it's been very successful. There's been some data out there that's not appealing in that regards, where they link it to potentially a deadly situation. All of those have been proven to be a secondary cause of some nature. So I'm very careful about that and watching what the trends are or what the data shows more than anything with using them. So I feel comfortable bringing them on board. Actually, everybody that's on the team currently has already had training in their previous employment. So this is just a refresher for us to start at a foundational baseline for everybody here, to say that we all got this same training, we all talked about it. I spoke to the instructor, actually one of them happens to be a district parent, about talking about those thresholds that you mentioned, especially when dealing with adolescents, and younger people in general. So we're going to be focusing on that as well. And then there are situational scenarios that we're going to be running through to simulate interactions and talk about those thresholds and all with regards to that. So.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned the aspect of, incidences where, it has been used and turned into a lethal situation because of unknown medical conditions, things that people have, so again, I just hope that training takes into consideration that every instance is different or whatever. And, you shock somebody once doesn't necessarily mean you keep shocking them or whatever.
Right. Right.
Okay,
Anything else?
another question there. You said there's a believe you said $1,000 difference between onboarding a new police officer. Is that correct?
Yeah, the salary difference was within $1,000.
That's only salary, though. That doesn't include the equipment that we would expect to.
Yeah, there would be some equipment we'd have to provide, uniforms and such.
Would
And there's a budgeted line item for that already for the current staff, so we can kind of take it out of there. There would be,
Would there be a vehicle ask with that?
there would not need to be because we're talking about afternoon and evening, so several of the units would become available in the afternoon. So,
Okay, so $1,000 in
Yeah.
salary, and the rest of it you.
yeah. And like I said, we haven't decided on that, but it was a healthy conversation we had the other week, and when we realized it was a pretty good ask that,
Yeah, I'm not saying it as a necessarily a negative. Just trying to get a
yeah, no.
sure what it
No,
is.
I understand.
Yeah, Mr. Liggett, and I think, it's preliminary discussions. Of course, we'd have to come to the school board and ask for an additional school police officer in general. So we're not quite there yet, but Chief Miller was just sharing some of the details as we go through with repurposing Mr. Haran's position, which, in my estimation, could have been utilized in different manners, especially now we're given this opportunity. So that's kind of what we're looking at, to cover some of those areas where we deem a need.
So, Mr. Weaver, if I could just add on to that, the one thing I want to point out is Mr. Haran had a lot of seniority. He was here for a lot of years as a security personnel. His salary is higher than what bringing in a security person's salary would be. So the difference there would be a little bit greater than the $1,000 for a school police officer. So as we talk about different options, the salary would be different too, based upon the role and the qualifications the individual may come in with to replace him.
That makes sense with the true-up cost difference.
Right, exactly.
Exactly.
It would be bigger than $1,000.
Sure.
Larger, yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to add with regards to the training is, so Officer Gillen, I mentioned to you right after our last meeting, was getting approved by the court, which occurred the following day. And then Officer Nab, she finished her training last week. So I submitted her paperwork today to Mr. Subers, and we expect to hear back in about a week. So then everybody will be certified and approved by the court.
Okay, some other safety news. So we're happy to report Chief Miller did receive the Police Officer of the Year from the Veterans of Foreign Wars. There is Mr. Vogel, there's Alan Elverson right next to Chief Miller, and then Officer Gillen is in between them. So that was well received, and again, it's a good positive note for us, and it just proves the level of professionalism Chief Miller has and respect in the industry. So that's a positive news. One other positive note, Leo Vogel recently helped a student at Evergreen by performing the Heimlich maneuver. So again, he really doesn't want to make a big deal out of it, but this is some positive news that we want to share. And there's also conversation from this in regards to possibly providing additional Heimlich training to all of those individual staff members, not just school police, not just SSGs, but also cafeteria monitors and food service personnel as well. Food service personnel already have some level of that as part of their certification, but it was a nice adder on that. This is another area that maybe we need to do some additional training on. So we're far from perfect. We're learning as we move along, but here's a good idea that came from this. So just wanted to share that news.
Well done, Chief Miller, and it's something that your staff should be commended for, or whatever. So I hope we recognize this too often during the regular business meeting or board meeting. So, but in addition to what you were stating, Mr. Weaver, so would teachers ever have the ability to be trained in something like that?
Yes.
So when I had mentioned earlier about the CERT team, this cardiac emergency response team, so the benchmark for that grant is 10% of any building's staff occupancy. And actually, I asked all the school police in each of our buildings to kind of recruit people, and it really wasn't a hard sell. I think every building is to that level or higher. So I'm working with Ms. Dreisbach about getting that training done. We had a training earlier this year on a PD day. There were operational staff, there was faculty, there was a number of people from the safety and operations that took part in that training on that particular day. And then our nurses are really good at keeping track of the individual training of other staff that voluntarily submits it to us. So we have a really good number of people in the building. And again, to your point, we're going to improve on that. And that was a conversation that Mr. Weaver referenced with regards to our staff that's around the kids when they're in lunch, to make sure that there's a number of them that are qualified. The incident with Officer Vogel just happened to be that he was standing at that particular table in conversation with other students, and a particular student was choking at the same table. So very fortunate, and he knew what to do, and in a matter of 2 minutes it was over. So we're very thankful.
Okay, Mr. Fabrizio.
Okay, just a quick project update. We've started the interior classroom door lock replacements. The high school is 99% complete. They've moved on to middle school east right now. They started there last evening. The 7th grade is now done, and they're swiftly moving through. They'll be finished there in about a week and a half or so, and then move on to Evergreen, and then keep progressing through the district. I just received the remaining keys for all the rest of the buildings today, so I hope to get them out by the end of next week and seed them in the buildings for the upcoming installs. This morning we had our initial kickoff meeting for the ESCO with CM3 to talk about what's going to happen this summer with the HVAC systems and the fire alarm system. So that project timeline is starting to solidify, and we'll have some more concrete dates in the upcoming months. The equipment is on track. We should have everything in hand by the end of May for a start in June. So once the kids are out, we're going full speed ahead to get everything completed. The RFQ for the football storage structure is out on the street, as well as yeah, we're still working through the district-wide storage structures. I want to standardize on something and then put that out. The card access is ordered and underway for Schwanksville for the playground, so that'll be coming shortly. And the grease trap for the high school kitchen is being coordinated along with the paving. So those are just a couple little snippets of what's going on in my world.
Mr. Fabrizio, so for those of you who are lucky enough, there has been some pretty good movement and progress in the high school office area as well. The creation of a newer conference room.
Yeah, those 2 items are complete now. I just didn't have a chance to update this. The high school conference room conversion is completed now, as well as the new office space where the old conference room was. There's just a couple little minor things they requested, which we're tackling, so that should be wrapped up within the next day or 2. So this is the RFP for the shed that went out. This is what we talked about before. So those will be return date back of March, and then for board approval in April. The Evergreen Elementary Gym dividing wall has been giving us some problems and needs to be replaced this summer. We had to remove 2 panels from that structure in order to be able to operate that. A new problem has surfaced now where it's digging into the new gym floor. So now the wall will remain closed until the summer. So we've alerted all the affected parties of what's going on. This is the original wall, and to replace it, we're looking at $82.5 this summer on CoStars. That would be funded through the capital reserve through our general fund. So,
That will come up for April and March.
yeah, yeah. Mm-hmm. Any questions on that, on the wall?
So we are planning, if the committee's okay, we'll move that forward for March school board meeting.
And the new wall will kind of, it will be up to code. So right now, there's no like entryway between the cafeteria side and the gym side. So the new wall will have like a man door to allow you to traverse through that section instead of having to walk all the way out and around to get to the other side.
What are they doing right now?
So the wall is closed. We had to close
Staying
it.
closed.
It's staying
oh,
closed.
okay. I thought that it was stuck open. Okay, that
Yeah.
would be
So,
awful. Okay.
so I did have a conversation with Mr. Marsh, the principal, and in this particular case, education rules. And so for his setup for education for cafeteria lunches and for gym classes, he said we needed to figure out a way to close the wall and then leave it there, which Joe and Jimmy Grisdale figured it out. They actually have the wall closed without any additional potential injury to the new floor,
Right.
which was my concern. So it is closed now for good. And I met with Steve Boyd from PVYB, of course, a big rentor of ours and our facilities in general, and he's okay. So we just told him no more, you can't come in. And so they're out for the rest of the year. Unfortunately, I don't know if that helps us with other groups that might want to come in because I think they like the size. So that might not be a solution for some of the other issues that we're having for space. So
Okay.
Out of curiosity, how's the floor?
It's scuffed, but it was, if we kept running it, it would have started digging in. So we put a 6-foot level and there's a slight crown in it. That's why it's hitting. The new wall is going to be a little bit higher, so it'll span over that without any issue.
it made a mark on it. It did not tear it,
Yeah.
and it did not injure the floor at all. It just made a mark on it.
Just a flesh wound.
Yes.
You keep poking that same wound, it'll open. So, yeah, we're not going to do that. So our vehicle replacement schedule, we retired our F-550 dump truck over a year ago, and it's just now coming up for replacement. This is the last vehicle to be replaced in our plan at this point in time. Next slide, Jim. So originally we were looking at a dump truck, but after talking with my staff, we're kind of going to take a hybrid approach and do an F-350 pickup truck, but put a dump insert in the bed to allow us more flexibility with the vehicle. We thought going straight up dump truck, it would just sit too often and not be utilized to its full potential. So with the dump bed insert, we can also put our tailgate spreader on there and then take that off when we're not using it and still maintain that dump bed feature. So the CoStar's pricing, I have a range right now between $76,500 to $78,500, and that'd be on CoStar's. Any questions on that?
So that's the only truck in the fleet that needs to be replaced
Yeah.
for approval for this year?
So we have some others that we want to tie to that for municipal lease, which we'll get to. And it
Yeah.
is time for our annual review of
Right.
fleet. Yes.
And so those would come in March as well?
Well, it's either March or April, depending upon the details for this and the others, as Joe just mentioned.
Yeah,
We've gotta-
there's a couple more, like you'll see in the next slide, there's a driver's ed car and another vehicle.
Talked about that last month, I think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay. I
And all
guess, I'm sorry, go ahead.
And all the things that are listed there are included in that price?
That's
or-
correct.
I guess my question would be, I guess my directive would be, if we can make our way to approval for March, it would give you some flexibility in shopping. I don't know if that is helpful or not. I know that it's CoStar, so it's negotiated, but I didn't know if there was still a potential for
We can go through
availability and things
different-
like that.
CoStar's vendors to get pricing,
Okay.
Yeah,
like
so,
different Ford dealers.
so one of the things that, from a timing perspective, is we need to match this up with bank quotes.
Yeah.
So we need to know what we're going to do to put into the bank quotes, and it usually is taking them about 2 weeks to get back. So
Right.
that's beyond when the March
Oh,
board
it
date.
might push us
So
into
that's why
April. Okay.
I said, Joe's ready to go, but the other stuff is coming
Okay.
not as fast.
Okay. I
we've
just
got-
didn't want there to be a holdup for a certain reason.
Agreed.
Okay.
Agreed, because we went through that, right? We ordered stuff
Right.
and then we had to wait 15 months until we ordered
For
some of
the-
those stuff.
right, 'cause
Right,
they
in the
were
pandemic,
out
but things
offshore
are
or whatever.
much more responsive at this point.
Yeah,
in
we're
time.
about 12 weeks out on a build
Oh,
right
that's
now.
not so terrible.
So it's
Okay.
not too bad.
All right.
But that's a good point, Ms. White. Thank you. Okay, so driver's ed car replacement. We have two cars currently. We have a 2019 Hyundai and we have a 2016 Ford Focus. The Ford Focus has 59,000 miles, but in talking to Joe Unilovich, we've been notified that the transmission is on its last leg. So for us to invest in a transmission and to extend an almost 8-year-old car with wear and tear from new drivers, it's time for us to face the music. We are looking at a number of different options, not just a Ford, not just a Hyundai, just a whole bunch of different options. And we're going through that process. That's another reason why it's taking us some time back and forth on what we like and what we don't like. There is an upfront cost, so that's a maximum not to exceed $27,000. There are some other options that are in the $24,000 to $25,000 range. So once we settle on that, we'll certainly bring that forward. The max would be $27,000. Trying to take everything into consideration as far as what other school districts use, as far as repair and maintenance, all of the stuff that people who understand cars, not me, have to provide input on that stuff. So, and we're very respectful of that. So that's going to take some time. And again, our recommendation is just to let you know we're working on that, and then we'll bring it forward. Mr. Miller.
So the last vehicle that we were discussing would be one used by our department. Currently, I know you're aware, we put 6 vehicles on the lease when we initially started. There are currently 8 of us in the district. The vehicle that is here for the high school to use is the previous pickup truck, a small pickup truck that we purchased for security a number of years back. It's currently not marked nor ready for police response. And I hesitate to do that because it's also duly used by the band to go to competitions, to tow a trailer, carry equipment. And I just don't want someone operating a marked police vehicle. It goes out of state, it goes great distances. And I just think it's just not worth us having that civilian driving that kind of a vehicle. So we've left it with the security markings on it, and we can continue to do that. But my recommendation would be to go with a vehicle dedicated to the police officers to use that has a cage in it sufficient to transport someone that may not be cooperative. So in my looking around, I didn't necessarily want a traditional big SUV police vehicle. That's not what I'm looking at. But I talked to people that work in children and youth, child protective services and the like. So they recommended a medium-sized Ford Explorer size SUV, but not to market. Put a cage in it, a barrier between the front seat driver and the passenger you might have, and then between that passenger and the back of the car where your equipment would be held. So I reached out to a CoStar's vendor who does this kind of thing, and these are numbers based off a very similar vehicle that he sold to another child protective service agency in Pennsylvania. So we're looking at the cost to be right around $50,600. We might be able to do better, but I wanted to give you the maximum numbers that he gave me, just for that consideration. It would be better for the officer here if he were to have to respond somewhere that, the vehicle would be equipped with that kind of equipment. But again, it would not be marked. And my thinking in that is if we're transporting someone, I'd rather be discreet about it, not necessarily having them in a car that's all marked up. So when that was mentioned to me by the salesperson, I kind of had to agree. And when I spoke to the people at Children and Youth and the like, they said the same thing. They've occasionally come to schools to pick people up, and they don't want to be, driving a vehicle that's emblazoned with whatever it might be on it. So our recommendation is to go with a standard fleet Ford Explorer. It's not a severe service vehicle that police departments buy. It affords us that same size, but it isn't large like a Tahoe or a pickup truck. Gives us room to put in this barrier and then to carry some of the equipment. So it's just slightly larger than the vehicles that we currently have. So that will have, to your question earlier, Mr. Liggett, that'll give us 7 units to use for the 8 officers that are in the district at the present time.
Since it won't be marked, will others have the availability to use it, or will it only be used by SPOs
This would be used by the SPOs and the security team.
exclusively?
Yeah, but the pickup truck, by not changing anything with that would still be available if we decide to go that route. Because Mr. Fabrizio and I had a conversation about whether or not there'd be something else in the fleet that could be utilized for these other groups that use it. So I don't know where we're at with that, but there wasn't anything readily available for that, to fill that spot. So I don't want to really do anything with it. We'll just leave it as it is for now.
Not to get too deep on the details on that, would it have a light bar, or are you picturing no light bar?
It'll be
Basically
all the lights would be inside of it.
Okay, so typical.
Yeah, so we have
typical
one
on-
vehicle like that now.
Yeah.
We'll just do it up on the other one.
Okay.
And we might be able to work something out with a Ford dealer saying, hey, we got a truck, we have another vehicle and a driver's ed car. What can you do for us?
Yeah.
So, worth a shot.
Okay, so following through on those items, again, just to give the committee an understanding of where we're at with maximum costs, we would be looking at a municipal lease over 4 years, which would roughly equate to about $40,000 per year for 4 years. Again, we don't know what the interest rate's going to be until we go out to the banking. Obviously, if the committee says thumbs up, that's good. We'll continue on our work. If the committee has any issues, certainly we can share this in a school board session or bring it back for additional conversation in March at the March Safety and Operations Committee, if you so desire. We are recommending to move forward with continuing to develop this, get the banking options rolling, get some quotes in, and then bring it back to the committee in March. Hey, here's where we're at, and then in April at the latest, getting the full school board to vote on it. We'll certainly take comments.
Just for full understanding of the costs, for the driver's ed car, what do you think a transmission repair replacement would cost?
Probably 5,000.
Are there any other issues with the vehicle that we're aware of?
That I'd have to look into. I'm not in tune with the driver's ed vehicles.
59,000 miles is not as high mileage on a car as it used to be. I'm just, putting it out there for consideration. If we need to economize, that might be a place to do it.
We could also get a credit for a trade-in of that one as well. And the other thing, just to reiterate, which always makes it a little bit of a difference as I think about things, is the driver's ed car actually has a revenue stream because it is part of our driver's ed program through community ed. So I know Chief Miller doesn't like this, neither does Joe, but of all these 3 vehicles, there's actually a revenue stream for the driver's ed car that helps offset that. And that's somewhere between $25,000 a year. Now, we do have costs against that, the individual instructors, but it is a necessary and a quintessential part of our community education program here at Perkiomen Valley.
So I have a question about the driver's ed car, as well as kind of along the same lines. How is the maintenance of those cars taken care of? Are they maintained just like
So
take them to a shop?
we track everything in our FMX software. Oil changes are
Gotcha,
handled
right.
down the street, and we document that in our software. We log it with the mileage, and then what work was done, and catalog that. Any warranty items, it goes back to the dealer if it's still under a factory warranty. So that's where we are with those.
So for those, like from a tech standpoint, a VOTEC standpoint that are in auto, there's no opportunity to use vehicles that need repairs there. Like, what do they work on?
Yeah, the tech school, right?
I don't know if they're certified mechanics or not. I don't know.
Instructor's got to be. I mean, I'm assuming that they operate under supervision.
Dr. Russell, not to put you on the spot, I know they have vehicle repairs over there. I don't know if they do service, that type of stuff. We can look into that.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I can look into that. I'm not certain they do either, but I'll certainly follow up.
I mean, I don't know how to replace a transmission, but I feel like that's a thing you might learn in a tech school.
Yes and no, and there's been big conversation on JOC about like what services they provide to, and they were actually trying to get away from it because people were seeing it as inequitable that we were doing things for certain people. So that's a big discussion about like, what we do and how we do it and where and who. So, but the question that Dr. Weston raised about, $59,000 being a pretty low number for someone who just replaced a transmission in the last year or whatever, I was surprised to learn that you don't get new transmissions. They rebuild the transmission, and you only get a year guarantee on that transmission. So they were open. They were like, this could fail in a year or 2 years. So again, I'm more likely to want to go with something that, we're not, hopefully not replacing something in 2 years on the 2016 car, so.
And they are new drivers, so stop, go.
Yeah.
A little
No, I'm
harder
not
on it.
against replacing it rather. I just was curious as to, if that's your car for your house, I don't know that you would just automatically turn it in. You would probably,
Make it stretch.
right.
Sure.
Yeah, well, I think the mileage of it, we're looking at that as if it was our car and we would have driven that. There's practically no highway miles on these. I mean, it's being, it's the worst kind of driving there is. I mean, you couldn't use mileage to have the oil change because the mileage just isn't there. So I think we need to make sure we're looking at this car through the proper lenses, which is, and worst comes to worst, we do have a dump truck they could always start to use. Just saying.
I said we should just get them a Tesla. It could drive itself.
It would be more beneficial to have them parallel park the dump truck than the Ford Focus. That's true.
It's career training as
Yeah,
well.
right. That's right.
Sometimes they think it's a dump truck.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to get us off track again.
All right, so at any rate, it's okay, we can work with this, and then we'll continue to work on this and bring more information. But our goal is to, regardless of the driver's ed car conversation, to wrap it up into some sort of municipal lease so it's much more affordable. Okay, Dr. Russell, task force discussion. This is a similar slide than what we had last month. We have some items in there that we checked off as done. I don't know if there's much more to add on the slide, but Dr. Russell, could you bring us up to speed?
Yes, thank you. So we had a second meeting this evening before I came over with special ed parents that were interested in learning more about this proposed grade level realignment. And we were really trying to facilitate more intimate conversations with some of the parents of our special ed students. And we had a nice turnout. Ms. White, thank you for joining that Zoom call. We've also been holding conversations with each of our building staff. I've also met with home and school organizations connected to 6 of our 7 schools. The high school does not have a home and school. The effort is to really communicate the idea around this proposal that's been made to the board and to answer questions that individuals may have. So those meetings are ongoing. We're down to Skipback tomorrow, and Schwanksville is then the last building we have to meet with as a faculty, and there have been several of us coming together to do that. The next community meeting is scheduled for next Thursday, February 27th. That'll be held at Evergreen, and we will again invite the public to come out. We will have a slide deck, a presentation that will build upon some of the questions we've been posed previously or to date. It will not repeat exactly what was presented on January 30th, but it will attempt to provide some more detailed information and answers to questions. And then I am scheduled to present to the board as part of my superintendent's report on March 3rd, a culminating slide deck that helps to inform the board and the public, for the record, what's happened to date and some of the thought processes that have developed further through the conversations. And we did also take another bus ride this morning. So last week we had some administrators and board member who actually took a test bus ride from the southernmost point in Collegeville. We started at district office and then worked our way over to Collegeville Crossing in Collegeville, which is adjacent, close to the Wawa on 29, if you're familiar with that area. We started the clock at the first bus stop, and we stopped 7 times through Collegeville Crossing, worked our way across 29 into Collegeville Glen. Finished picking up or stopping, there were 7 stops on that route, where the driver hesitated for 30 seconds to a minute or so per stop to really mimic picking up students. In some cases, she expressed to us it would have taken longer. In some cases, it would have taken less time, depending upon the number of students at the stop and whether or not all students are actually at the stop ready to board the bus. There was also a group that rode the bus back in the afternoon from west to those Collegeville neighborhoods. Ride time was just under 35 minutes for those rides. Today we went out to Skipback. Skipback is almost as far east from west as south is, or the south residents are south of west. So we again took a ride this morning. We left district office at about 7:25, and it took us just under 30 minutes, about 30 minutes to get up to west. And we went through, we went out 73, and just before the restaurant, is it Giuseppe's on the left? Giuseppe's. We turned and went into some neighborhoods there, and we worked our way through. Again, we had 7 stops. The driver stopped and hesitated for 30 seconds to a minute, and worked our way up to west, and it took about 30 minutes, just under 30. So fairly close in terms of the timing. Both exercises, if you will, had us leaving district office at 7:25. So we were on the road, we were on 29 at about the same time with both of those exercises, because ultimately I had wondered, would Ridge Pike to Township Line be better to work your way further north on 29? Would it make sense to work our way to Game Farm Road and come out even further north on 29? Bus driver said no. They have not found success or efficiency with doing that. So from the South Territory last week, we came right out onto 113 off of Clayhor, and then worked our way directly to 29 and right up to west. And there was very little traffic moving in our direction. It was coming the other way. Same thing today. Today was actually, there was a little bit more traffic in Skipback actually on 73, but once we got to 29, again, we worked our way up, and it was fairly smooth. It was okay. So that's helpful information. In addition, we will share, Mr. Ganesh has been recording information. He's had some of his interns out with GoPros and recording different routes and timing those routes, again, to mimic what it would be like for students from some of these different neighborhoods that are further and will travel further than what they're used to if this plan comes to fruition. So trying to gather some data and really figure out how can we bring efficiencies to the transportation if this is where we land, 5-6 at west, 7-8 at east. And transportation has been heavy on the minds of our people, so we're really focused on that. Tonight we heard more about transitions. And so again, we're really focused on transitions and trying to think differently in new ways to support our students. We recognize that those in 4th grade will be 5th graders next year, 6th grade at West for 1 year. That came up tonight in our conversation. So that's a 1-year stint, if you will, at West. We need to think about that very carefully. How do we make sure all of the communication that needs to occur does indeed occur, and we maximize that experience for that student or students, and then prepare those students for 7th and 8th grades here at East? if again this plan comes to fruition. So really thinking about, and parents who have come out, staff, I was at West this afternoon, they've shared really helpful questions and they have valuable insights that are contributing to some of the answers or questions that we attempt to proactively address, or what's in the slide deck, etc. So that's really the schedule and the timeline for next steps and what's yet to happen. And then it would be my request of the board to make a consideration. Dr. Russell, we need more information as a result of this presentation March 3rd, or we would like to see X, Y, Z. If we can accommodate, if the board feels ready, I would request a decision in April or May so that we can get started. Regardless of the path we end up on, there's a lot of work to do. So that would be the request of the board. Thank you.
Dr. Russell, the only thing that I would add, being in both of the special ed, listening on both of the special ed meetings, the overarching theme in line with the transition planning is really the concern that this group of parents have with the continuity of procedure. And so, and I heard that loud and clear. So I think that the uniqueness of the special ed meetings, and I was disappointed that not everybody was able to hear all of it. I know that, I guess today's would have been recorded, but maybe the first one wasn't.
We did not record these intentionally.
Intentionally, okay, and
Yeah.
and that's fair. And I
Yeah.
think and I respect that. So I guess I feel even more disappointed that not everybody got to hear the line of questioning, because this particular group of parents are truly embedded in the advocacy of their children and really have to learn, like, boots on the ground, trial by fire, and how to navigate not just our system, just the public services that they need to get for their children across the board, across the county, and et cetera. And so this group of parents really has a very laser focus on what goes wrong when it goes wrong. And it doesn't go a little wrong, it goes a lot wrong. And so one little thing kind of can spiral and really create a lot of turmoil for the family unit, but then also for, obviously, then the child, who is the one that's suffering through it. So I found that really beneficial to listen to firsthand, and I just want to say that Mrs. Aducci and team really absolutely did the most remarkable job navigating the questions, the presentation, and organizing all of the information. But so what I would ask is that administration really take a look in a separate lane from the realignment conversations at our transition planning process, and also create a document that would maybe be some sort of a flow chart of expectation, not just for this group of families, not just for this group of parents, but for all parents that are transitioning. Because unfortunately, the transitions, and it was brought up, I think, on the 13th meeting, that identification of services sometimes doesn't happen until that 5th to 6th grade year, or, you know, as kids get older and they have more layered exposure and identification, needs. I can't imagine, and having navigated some of it firsthand myself, the frustration that's felt in putting in another roadblock, or another bump, or another, we just got our hands around it and now we're shifting focus. With the majority of, not the majority, but with a large percentage of our children being neurotypical and having some sort of a very specific need. And so I think that we owe that as a priority to our parents in general. Because not just parents of special, my point is not just special education parents benefit from the information.
So I appreciate that, and I used the term a few minutes ago, communication. We need to really think about communication. That's how I was couching a concern raised tonight by a parent who's maybe not experienced firsthand, but been informed of maybe the middle school not being as aware of the needs of a student as the elementary school was. And we absolutely can't have that. And after the meeting, I did speak to Mrs. Aducci about that. It's not only for our special education students that we really need to think about these transitions, it's our general education students. It's all students. So how do we think differently? How do we think in new ways to make sure that we meet the needs of all students? And especially when this parent happened to mention the parent had to go and ask for a middle school representative. Well, absolutely not. We absolutely don't want that happening. So these conversations have helped create a greater awareness for me and our team as to where we need to focus and strive towards improvements for the benefit of our kids. So I completely agree.
Thank you. You and I didn't debrief after the meeting that was just on, obviously, but in hearing those things to me are completely separate, independent concerns to address from the realignment. And again, I know that it's only a week away now to our second community meeting on the 27th, but if some sort of flow chart of administration's expectation can be laid out, I think that would be hugely beneficial to all parents of approaching any transition. Because again, if parents feel comfortable, then they can help reassure their children to feel comfortable, and then everybody will have the same expectation of knowing that if something isn't happening, it should be happening.
And it's not really a question, more like a thought in regards to the transportation issues. And I, excuse me, I appreciate that we're doing timed runs right now, which is very helpful because, having data on this is going to be extremely important. Has Mr. Ganesh or has anybody figured out what would be the additional traffic, let's say, burden on main campus if we were to go through with this? Because although the 5th grade of Evergreen would be leaving and they're kind of on a different schedule anyway, we're going to actually have more students between the two buildings than we currently have. And do we have like a number on what would be the increased number of buses that would be here and just an idea of what it is? Because I can foresee the traffic situation in this area, especially on 29, changing because we're talking about at least 200 extra people compared to the current situation?
So right now we are projecting out for East that it would be 711 students. They currently have about 575. So close
roughly,
to 200, yes. We have had.
Because obviously we're not going to put 200 people here to test the traffic situation. So
No. So we have had 500 more students in our high school. We have had over 1,000 students at East at one point, many years ago. It would probably be helpful for me to go back or for Mr. Weaver to reflect upon what was traffic like on campus when we had that large middle school with over 1,000 students and a high school that was well over 2,000. It was over 2,000 or around 2,000 at some point. So
yeah, because I can picture with there being more students here.
yes.
Not everybody's going to take the bus. There's going to be some more parent cars here, but also that route that we're talking about to get to West, they're now going to be traveling past a more congested area to begin with. So like the light at 113 coming on 29 out of Collegeville, where currently in the mornings it doesn't seem like there's that much of a backup coming this way.
Right.
That may change. And going the opposite way, sometimes that's a 10-minute wait. So that's why I was just curious if there's been any consideration to the additional traffic.
There have been thoughts about that, and I'm guessing Mr. Ganesh's GoPro videos will record some of that. However, we are also thinking about the timing of the three different
tiers.
levels. And right now, we talked about this evening the possibility of the 5-6 center starting their day at 8:15. Doors open at 8:05. So right now, high school and East, doors open at 7:40. Students have to be in their seat by 7:50. Elementary, doors open at 8:30. Students have to be in their seat by 8:40. So this would slot in the middle when students will have been delivered to East and the high school, theoretically, and it will be before students land at the elementary. So there could be some cross traffic there, but the bulk of the secondary level traffic should be concluding. Should be,
Understood.
yeah. But
It's
we'll-
obviously a dynamic situation that
Yes.
you can't model out every part of that. So.
Right. But we will look at that, and I'll ask Mr. Ganesh in some of the video he's recording what they may have captured around that.
Yeah.
What we noticed is when we were headed up, the traffic seemed to be coming back in the morning.
Could be.
We were moving in the right direction to be efficient and for things to flow.
Sure.
And the same was true in the afternoon. It was coming up. Now the afternoon can still be pretty congested up 29. To get to West, it took the same amount of time that, and Dr. Weston rode the bus, but personal experience, it can be challenging in the afternoon. Getting up to West, not coming back, getting up is harder. So we're moving in the right direction, different times a day. It's far. It's farther than what we're used to, except for our skip-back families.
Yeah,
They've
no,
been
they-
doing
they-
it.
They
but-
bear the brunt of this right
But
now.
you're right. The traffic patterns are a little different coming over from south than they are in the skip-back area. And we're trying to be cognizant of everything and see if we can maximize with the time that the students would actually start their day, maximize opportunities to be as efficient as possible. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, we just need to realize that we're actually creating an additional traffic bump in this area when we do this.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Liggett, if I could add a little bit to that conversation, and I do know Mr. Ganesh has done wonderful work. One of the things that we discussed today on our bus trip was the need for us to listen to STA as well. As we go about and we say we're going from a 2-tier process to a 3-tier process, and we're working our way through the educational pluses and minuses of making this process in the grade level realignment, it's important for us to listen to STA in the terms of the history and the knowledge that they bring to such questions that you have. One of the things that we are looking at is trying to diagnose whether it's advantageous for us to designate certain buses for certain runs. So for instance, to go into Collegeville, those runs are dedicated for Collegeville straight up to West. There are about 20 some odd students at this point in time that we're tracking for 2 years from now that would qualify for that. How would that impact that? Would we send one smaller bus in and get all 22 of them? We quickly learn no, because that would slow things down. But if we have 2 smaller buses, they could split the load and pick them up and then head back up. That helps West in a 5 to 6 arrangement. However, what kind of impact will that have? Now all of a sudden we have 13 buses coming to the 113 and 29. That's where the rubber hits the road from that sandbox. They say this is where we're going to play and create these bus routes and then hypothetically go through that. Hopefully, not all the time, but hopefully we'll discover some of those things when we play in that sandbox and try to avoid those items. Okay, some other items. Mr. Fabrizio.
Okay, so we need to do some remediation at the high school as a result of locker removal. We have a June 23rd to July 2nd timeframe, an estimated cost of $12,000. This involves ripping up some floor tile in what's called the square on the second floor. And then I'm still in talks with Dr. Fuller if we're going to leave it bare concrete or go back with newer VCT. So that's still in discussion right now. And then, yep,
So with regards to the locker removal, that's already begun, correct?
that's finished.
It is, so every locker that's being removed has been removed?
I believe so, yeah.
Okay, and what happened to those lockers?
Some of them are sitting in district office.
Oh, there's like 4 of them in district office. but
Well,
yeah.
I'm not done yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
And then we recycled the remaining items.
And so you turned them in, you delivered them over for scrap metal?
Yes, we dispose of them.
Okay. Did you get, do you have record of the total that you received for returning them for the metal?
I believe I have that in my records, yes.
Is that 12,000 offset by that?
Oh, no. No.
But for that amount of lockers, I'm assuming that it's more than like $50.
It's a couple hundred.
Right.
Yeah.
I just wanted to allocate the fact that we did receive something back.
Yep. Middle School West, we lost our controller that tells our booster pump when to fire on for the sprinkler system. This is not related to the fire panel project. This is an original piece of equipment that needs to be replaced. Basically, it helps pressurize the sprinkler system. That system is functional. I just want to make everyone aware of that. And this is CoStar's pricing of $24,235. Any questions on that? And the last,
I do have a question on that.
Oh.
I'm sorry.
yep, go ahead.
Does that boost pump, does that feed directly to a well, or is that part of fire hydrant that's adjacent to the building?
So it's not actually the booster pump that failed, it's the control module that tells the pump when to fire.
Oh, okay. But what is the water supply source?
Street pressure.
Oh, it is. Okay. Okay.
Next slide, Mr. Weaver. So the high school paging and mass notification system is in need of major repair. It's currently an analog 25-volt system in the building that is original. Ongoing repairs have become very, very expensive because we're locked into a Simplex, which is now JCI or Johnson Controls panel. And it's proprietary. So anytime something breaks on it, we have to call Johnson Controls in. Our last repair was very, very expensive, almost half the cost of a new system. This system allows the main office to, make a page throughout the building. It's also tied into the clock system for the buzzer. This new system will bring us in to the modern age. It will allow 911 alerting. It will tie in with different building sensors that we have, and also panic buttons if we choose to go down that route. Next slide. Let's hit the video link, Jim, real quick, just so I can show them what this is about. That's going to launch a new window, and then we're going to scroll down. Top left. Do you have volume on this or not? I don't know if you can go full screen or not.
Come on.
Pretty techy. There you go.
It works together. Your operations run smoother, processes are more efficient, and people are better informed. That's why our software integrates seamlessly with our dedicated technology partners to leverage the devices and systems you already have, eliminating silos and streamlining workflows. With solutions from Single Wire Software at the center of your safety and communication strategy, you can automate notifications initiated from existing panic buttons, sensors, cameras, and other systems, and then deliver those notifications as quickly as possible to your phones, speakers, digital signage, and more, with intrusive text, audio, and visual alerts. All of this provides actionable situational awareness, creating more effective safety response plans, and helping organizations meet necessary regulatory compliance. Our software offers limitless possibilities to build a connected ecosystem you can utilize to create the most powerful safety and communication system possible. Your technology, our software, infinite possibilities. Talk to our team members about how Single Wire Software can unify the technology in your organization.
You can go to the next slide. So I've been working with Mr. Ganesh on this project, and we had a meeting with the vendor. We've seen a demo. If you can go to the next slide, Jim. I did reach out to my fellow directors throughout Montgomery County to see what everyone was using, and a majority of them are using the single wire platform. So with this platform, as I mentioned, we can leverage our in-classroom interactive boards. If there is an event, we can push out a message with the click of a button. We have the ability to turn on the panel and display a message on that panel. It can also do numerous other tasks if we so choose, such as reunification, visitor management, and so forth. I know everyone has questions on this, so.
My only question is the timeline for they ask for approval, and then what is the timeline to actually implement?
So I would like to bring this to the board at the upcoming board meeting. The implementation would be this summer.
And so with regard to the workload for the summer, is this a team that, this isn't an in-house installation, right? This would be this
This is
particular
contracted out.
company, okay. And then this app on the phone, who would that be managed by? That's not a parent-facing app, right?
No, this is a admin-facing app.
And then SPOs, I'm assuming as well, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
And can you go back to two other slides? The fire panel for the pump. Oh, and the floor remediation, right? So those are both going to be March asks as well.
Yes.
Okay.
Joe, you mentioned this system, it has some visitor information management technology capabilities. Does that mean, does it interface with Raptor?
That I have to find out.
Because
We just
we already have
implemented that,
that,
right.
and,
Yeah.
you know, that'd be great if it does, but I don't think we're looking to replace Raptor.
No.
But given the fact that you said most surrounding folks use this and they also use Raptor, I would. Okay. So you'll find that.
I'll get a
out.
definitive answer from the vendor on that.
Great.
And does this involve hardware wire runs throughout the buildings then, or does it?
No, so we're going to leverage our existing infrastructure and cabling. Basically, there's a rack off the back of the main office where all the wiring for the speakers in the building come into. We install an intermediate box that converts it to IP, and then allows us, it's like a little black box, allows us to keep the existing amplifier cards in there, but offer state-of-the-art functions.
It's essentially a control system for our existing hardware that's
Yeah.
already deployed.
So we're going to get rid of the simplex proprietary nonsense and open us up to an open system that we can work on.
Nonsense. You're really in favor of it. Got it.
And so is this is for this building? This is for the high school.
Yes.
Is there a desire to move to this particular platform in the other buildings as well, or?
We can. It is scalable.
But is that the vision? That there would be continuity between all buildings?
I would imagine so, yes.
Okay. So would you be able to lay out with Mr. Ganesh and Mr. Weaver and Mr. Miller the plan of attack with
Sure.
that then for a more long term, understanding that this building would be step one?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
One last question, because I see a phone with an app there. Is this a subscription service? Is this going to involve an annual charge?
So this does include a 3-year license. Almost every single platform is SaaS now, system as a service. You just can't get away from it. It's the nature. It's the direction the whole industry is moving.
So
But
we
the
get
good news
3
is
years
it
at
wouldn't be
first.
obsolete though, because it would continue to evolve ideally.
Yeah, understood. Just making sure we know what we're getting ourselves into.
Yeah, I mean, even with, networking equipment, phones, our door controllers, everything is subscription based now.
Understood.
Any other questions on that? Our annual grass cutting RFQ is out on the street. For the past several years, we've been working with a local landscaping company to help us out. It's just not enough hours in the day to tackle everything. So we're looking at Schweinsville South, Skip Back and West, 25 cuts. We're kind of shifting things up a little bit this year. We're waiting for the response and hope to have it back in time for the approval in March for the board. April.
Sorry, so the RFQ isn't due? Yeah, April war.
And how is this different than last year's? What do you mean switching it up?
So we're adding a section at West and taking some away at Skip Back. And it's roughly the same price. Our main focus is on like the front of the buildings. We're still maintaining all the athletic fields, doing all the striping and things of that nature. Just to cut west, I mean, I have 2 guys up there. It's at least 2 days of nonstop cutting.
Yeah.
It's a lot. Just to kind of fill you guys in on our ESCO kickoff meeting this morning, just so everyone's on the same page. We're looking to start at the high school in areas, if you look at the top left, areas C and B. And the reasoning is we have high school student lot paving scheduled for June. I don't want a 300,000-pound crane running over our fresh blacktop. So we have given CM3 a drop dead date of June 22nd to have the crane in and replace the units in areas B and C to stay off the blacktop, which will start on June 23rd. So we're coordinating that now. They said it can be done. So that is the plan for that. You can also see areas A and D. They have units. They're marked red on the plan. It's a little hard to see. This was a scan that I received today. But A and D also have units where a crane will be set up. Our longest pick, as we call it, Jim, if you can go to the next slide, is 200. This one's 225 at 250 feet. And just some quick facts on this. This crane is going to weigh 308,000 pounds with ballasted weight. So it's a lot of weight. This is just a representation of the calculations, of the angles, the length, and the weights involved on something like this. A helicopter lift was in the talks, but they feel as though they can get it done with a crane. Now, during these crane lifts, we're going to need to be a little flexible because I can't have people under certain sections of the building when these lifts are going on in case something catastrophic were to occur. We just have to plan for the worst case scenario. So as we solidify these dates on these lifts, that'll be communicated to the school, and we'll have to shift staff and people in the building around accordingly. Any questions on that?
Is there language in the ESCO for damage remediation, should there be any?
Yes.
So that would include the student lot. I understand about not wanting to invite a crane onto the newly paved lot, but should there be damage?
There would be damage.
Yes.
But no, but there's language in there that it needs
Yes.
to be repaired by,
Absolutely.
okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
And we have a good relationship with CM3, so that would be a no-brainer in my estimation. But legally, we are in good shape.
And when you were talking about a calendar, there's no dates on any of this, so
Well, I know for a fact that areas C and B will start on, let me pull up my calendar, bear with me 1 second here. June 18th start, The 16th and 17th are half days, I believe, for staff. The last student day is the 13th. Graduation's coming up on the 6th. So we're looking to get the lift out with the old, in with the new, with a drop dead date of the 22nd, starting on the 18th. Now I'm working with the food service director on getting in, because some of the units are serving the cafeteria / kitchen area. We need to get in and disconnect controls and piping prior to the 18th. So I'm working with Kelsey Gartner on that to be able to get up there and disconnect and not cause too much stress on the cafeteria folks. We have a very, very busy summer.
Speaking of, has there been, so will the cafeteria, the coolers, et cetera, all of those things, will they be offline for any duration?
No, so the refrigerators and the walk-in freezers aren't touched. They're not part of our
They're not part of that? Okay,
glycol HVAC system.
okay.
They're independent.
And what about the days that East is, like, for example, when East goes down?
East will be down the whole summer.
Understood.
Yeah.
So has that timeline and coordination, has that all been communicated out to the stakeholders there yet, or is that still in progress?
We've been, we blacked out ML schedules. We've communicated with the building that they will be offline. So there is dialogue happening right now. We're still solidifying the dates for the start and drop, the start date for East. We're still working on that. That was part of the discussions today.
Okay. I know that it's separate from this, but they're sort of running in tandem, so.
Yep.
So if you're interested, there are little red dots in this map. Those are the HVAC units that are getting replaced. Sorry, it's so hard to see. But so these three over here, that one, these two.
Yeah, there's
this
10, I
one.
believe.
So those are the items that have been identified to be removed, in case you're curious. And Joe does have bigger maps.
Any other questions, guys?
Okay, thank you.
you.
Committee members, anything for us, anything else for us?
The auditorium, we approved, and it's underway. Were things ordered?
Yes, Mr. Ganesh finalized the quote, and we're getting ready to summarize phases 2 and 3 through a purchase order, correct?
Wonderful. And then I know that we approved the playground. How about that?
So I have a meeting with Lions Recreational coming up next week. We're going to go over timeline. Operations will be doing the demo and installing the hundreds of yards of mulch.
Okay.
And Mr. Marsh made a final decision on color scheme as well. So he's going to go with the original in the design. He brought his crew back in just to make sure his group, and they all agreed.
Okay. And then I have, trying to see if there's anything else we didn't touch that we talked about last month. Talked about the fire panels already. ADs. I guess the only other question then with regards to the playground is whether or not there's been dialogue about identifying locations at West for a potential expansion. Maybe we can include that for next month.
Yeah, we've talked about the idea of desiring to put a playground in. We haven't really zeroed in on some space. We can start to do that, though.
Okay.
We can talk about it. And, Mr. Fabrizio will help us to know where there may be power lines, utility lines, or whatever.
That would be helpful for
And-
next month,
right,
just to
narrow
incorporate it into
the conversation with the
Yeah.
board. Yes. Thank you.
all I got. Thank you. Anybody else?
Okay. Hearing none, typical, if you have any additional questions, just let us know, send us some emails. So we'll end tonight's meeting at 7:29, and thank you for your participation.